All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Protestant Libertarian Podcast. My guest today, returning after 2 long years, is Econ Bro. He's a Nigerian, he's a pastor, he's an economist. He's trying to spread the message of liberty in Nigeria. And I'm excited to get his perspective on what's going on in global politics, what he's doing in Nigeria, and everything else that's going on. So, Econ Bro, welcome back to the Protestant Libertarian Podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I think this is the first show that this will be my third appearance. I've never done three appearances on any show, so this is my first time doing that. So it's great to be back again and on video this time.
Yes, yes. I'm glad we're able to do this. And man, always good to have you back here. Before we get started, obviously it's been 2 years since the last time you've been on. I've gotten some new listeners since then. Introduce yourself to my audience.
Okay, so I'm Econ Bro. Not my real name. It's short for Economics Bro. I'm an Austro Libertarian. I'm a minister of the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. And that's my primary assignment, a minister of the gospel. And then on the side, I do pro libertarian liberty advocacy. Basically, I travel across various states in my country talking to young people about the ideas of private property rights, personal liberty, individual liberty, personal responsibility, sound money, free markets, all that good stuff. So I talk to young people about these things at these events. I give out free libertarian literature to the participants of the event. Basically, my goal is to um, get this country to embrace liberty, hopefully in my lifetime.
Well, I know
Yeah, so
later on in the
that's
show I want to talk to you. Yeah, later on in the show I want to talk to you a lot about the Nigerian Liberty Project because I love what you're doing there. But before we start, the episode that's going to come out before this one, I have another friend who's actually a socialist who lives in Sweden, and I had him on a couple of days ago to talk about just his perspective on everything that's going on with Trump, and in a lot of ways, I think he has at least with respect to American foreign policy, he has a lot of perspectives that are similar to yours and mine. So just being an outsider as someone who's not in the United States, I know that you're obviously watching, Trump term two and the circus surrounding that from the outside. What do you make so far of the first few months of this new Trump administration?
um, so. Well, the first few months, I would say I was very impressed when he freed Ross because I wasn't really expecting him to do that. I expected him to go back on his word, but he actually ended up doing that, which I thought was impressive. Um, but and I like the Doge stuff, um, the the efforts to cut spending. I like that. I think that's commendable. And with those two things, I pretty much run out of good things to say concerning the Trump administration. In the 2016 elections, I was very pro-Trump. As a matter of fact, it was that period I began to become politically let me say aware of global politics, right? And Donald Trump was a very strong force. Um, um, Donald Trump helped awaken me. He was the one. It was following him that opened my eyes to the lies of the media and all that stuff. So I was pro-Trump in the past, 2016 to 2020. But as I became more libertarian, I became less pro-Trump. Um, I made a video on my other Twitter account talking about how I don't think Donald Trump is the right candidate to vote for in the last election. Of course, that doesn't mean I support Kamala Harris. I think she would have been far worse. But as they say, the lesser of two evils. So I don't have anything good to say about Donald Trump apart from freeing Ross and the trying to cut spending, which I don't think is going very well.
What does the Nigerian media say about Donald Trump? Like when you pick up the newspaper or turn on the news, what are they saying about his administration in your press?
The Nigerian media is no different from the Western media. By that I mean the mainstream left wing media, the CNN, MSNBCs, and all that nonsense. So basically, they just pick up and talking points from those people and then they repeat them here. So, um, although there are many people who don't buy the Trump is racist and all that nonsense, there are most people in the media are anti-Trump here. So that's the perception. But actual human beings, I would say a considerable number of real non-media human beings actually don't buy into the anti-Trump propaganda. People actually like him here, especially among Christians. Christians think he's some sort of messiah. So the Christians like him here, but the media no, the media doesn't like him.
Yeah. So what do you think about like okay, and I think this is something that's really hard for a lot of Americans to understand because we're at the center of kind of the American global empire. But what impact does American politics have on Nigerian society?
Um, well, Nigeria depends on the dollar for pretty much all imports. We depend on the dollar for our currency, for the stability of our currency. The way it works is when we are short on dollars, the currency tends to lose its value. So I believe pretty much everything in the economy can be tied to money. So if the Nigerian currency depends on the US dollar, if the Nigerian economy depends on the US dollar, then the US has a very significant impact on Nigeria. I maybe if you have any specific area um, you would like to ask, I could give more light. But in general, yes, US policy does tend to affect. Okay, let me give you a practical example. With the cutting of the reduction in USAID funds, um, lots of people are complaining here. People are losing their minds because lots of that USAID money comes to Nigeria. Lots of it comes here. So yeah, it's affecting the economy negatively, and I don't care about that because most of those people who receive the funding are pushing the climate agenda and all that nonsense. So and SJWs, social justice stuff. So it's good that they're taking money away from them, but it does have an effect on the economy because um, the fewer, the less the amount of dollars we have coming into the country, um, the less demand for our local currency here, the naira, and um, rather than do the right thing of stopping the inflation of the currency, they would much rather inflate than expect dollars to come in so that they can use the dollar to demand the naira and have its value increase. So it's a clown show. But yeah, the US sneezes, Nigeria catches a cold. So that's how it works.
Yeah, and so to the extent that like, obviously people around the world were frustrated with the cut of USAID funding. Austria libertarians like us, we get that that's actually a benefit on net. When it comes to like the American military presence in Ukraine or in Israel, and I know that there are operations in the Arabian Peninsula and in Eastern Africa, does that have any impact on politics in Nigeria?
Not directly, not at this time. Not at this time. I can't. So we have a large Muslim population here, and they are pro-Palestine. Let me put it that way. So they are not too pleased with the whole situation with Israel and Palestine now. So there is the very real possibility, and things like this happen every now and then, that people could get attacked here be- because of maybe some pro-Israel policy implemented by America. Things like that are known to happen. They can happen, but no direct. I no, it doesn't affect us directly. It just has indirect effects. I don't know how else to explain that.
Yeah, right. No, that makes a lot of sense, and I feel like there are many Americans that feel that way as well, where these wars happen overseas, and you might not like know anyone that's actually fighting in them, but we feel like kind of the economic impact of it here. So I totally get it. I know that the last couple of times we've talked, you've discussed just the political dynamics in Nigeria and some of the, I guess, the drama that's been going down in your political system. So talk to us about what's happening in Nigerian politics right now. Where is the country at? Who's in charge? Where is it headed? Where is it headed? All of those things.
So I think the last time we spoke, I, if I remember clearly, we had just gotten a new president, not too long
Yeah.
before we spoke. So the previous president was a disaster, and we experienced never before seen levels of price inflation. And then this new guy came in with reforms and basically dialed the economic horrors to 11. So things are much worse than they were. The currency took a very serious nosedive after the new guy came in. Um, Petrol, gasoline, as you guys would call it, is very expensive here. And I'm not exaggerating. It's two times more expensive than it was the last time we spoke. Right. So everything is terrible. Security hasn't gotten any better. We still have the kidnappings and the ritual murders and the crime and the prostitution and all that stuff. So things have gotten significantly worse in the last 2 or 3 years with the new president. So things are horrible. That's as much as I can say about that.
So, what are some of the specific policies that the new presidential administration have implemented that have made things worse?
Well, it's the same old government spending policy. We come in, we tax the people to raise revenues and then spend. That's what they're doing. And then the man who is president now, he's known. He was a two-time governor of the largest black city in the world is Lagos. So he was formerly the governor of Lagos State, and now he's president. So when he was governor of Lagos State, he was known to tax people a lot. You can't drink a cup of water without getting taxed. So um, basically everyone everywhere is trying to tax people. Every arm of government is trying to get money out of people's pockets. So that's just the policy. Let's raise money through taxes and some of it through inflating the currency and spend building roads and bridges and schools and all that nonsense that doesn't work. They're just misallocating resources, misdirecting capital and wasting capital. So it's basic Keynesianism: tax the people, inflate the currency, and spend. So there are many more. There are more taxes now. They had a tax reform bill. I don't know if it has been passed yet, but they were talking about it late last year. Tax reforms, and you would not believe that they cut some taxes and they added some taxes, right? So I asked some guy, because I don't pay much attention to what they're doing. It's very depressing to pay too much
Right.
attention to what they're doing. So um, I asked some guy who is a tax expert who actually helped work on the tax reform bill, and he said to me that on net we have more taxes than before, right? So um, go figure. Things are most certainly going to get worse when that passes into law. And that's just on the economic side of things. In terms of politics, there is a lot of lunacy. It's really really crazy here. So let me just tell you a story. There is a woman, um, a female senator. I lost. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, yeah. You're back. You're back.
Okay, okay. I apologize. Network is really weird here today.
No,
So
that's
there is
okay.
a female senator. Okay, okay. So there's this female senator who she's a first time senator, I believe, a freshman senator, I believe that's what you guys would call her. Um, she accused the Senate president of sexual harassment, and the Senate president was the one who judged the case, and then she got suspended for 6 months, which I believe is unconstitutional. They took away her security. They wouldn't pay her any money. They would not pay her staff and all the aides attached to her. She can't call herself a senator. They even they got everything I'm saying is on record. You could go find it on online. It's there. They got people to. We have videos of people faking signatures to recall this woman, right? So now this is just a senator. There is a governor of one of the states in Nigeria that has been fighting with the previous. So we have political godfathers here. You can't be anything in politics if you don't have a political godfather. So what usually happens is the governor of a state hands over to someone, one of his people. So basically, the former governor is the governor by proxy. So the last governor of a particular state installed one of his lieutenants to be the new governor. And then that guy, the new governor said, I can't be tethered to you anymore. And then they started to fight each other. At one point, they set the state assembly on fire. They set the state assembly on fire just so that the state assembly would not meet, and impeachment proceedings would not go on. So there was so much political unrest in the state that the president jumped in and declared a state of emergency and suspended the governor. It's unconstitutional that he did that. He suspended the governor and imposed a um, a military man to be the acting governor of the state for 6 months. So it's a clown show. This is just the tip of the insanity iceberg that is Nigeria. So everything is crazy with this new guy. We thought things were bad before, but they are way worse now.
So I know in the last election you guys had an outside candidate. I think his name was Peter Obi. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, Peter Obi.
Yeah. All right. So I wonder, just personally, like what happened to him as a political figure, and is there a viable political opposition to, I guess, the current Nigerian regime? Are there people in Nigerian politics that want to take the country in a more like sound direction?
No, no. My people are going to hate me for saying this, but even Peter Obi, the man Nigerians hope hoped and still hope is the answer, is a socialist. He's just socialist. He's like a Keynesian socialist. He's socialist light. That's what he is. So I don't. So he wrote. Peter Obi wrote certain things that he was going to do in his policy document, his manifesto, and some of the things he said he would do, this current government is doing, and things aren't getting any better. Things are only getting worse. So Peter Obi might not be he might not have as much political drama as we have going on now. But um, in terms of the economy, I don't think things will get much better if Peter Obi is at the helm of affairs. Perhaps the only um, hope that we can have with someone like him is that he'll be willing to listen to reason. The people who are currently in power now, the people who have been in power for the last past decade, they are not people who listen to reason. No matter how much you try to explain why what they're doing is wrong, they wouldn't pay attention to you. They'll just keep doubling down on lunacy, right? So perhaps Peter Obi might be able to listen. That's the only advantage I think he has over the current government. So there is literally no hope in sight. It was so bad that I considered running for office very recently, not for the office of president because I can't even come close, but just some other smaller office, just so I could get these um, sane ideas out there. But I'm still mulling it over. I haven't made my decision yet, but um, yeah, I'm considering it.
So what's the process like? So if you decided to run for office, is it easy for you to apply and become a candidate, or what would that whole thing look like for you?
Oh no, it's very difficult to apply. It's damn near impossible for me to join a party, get the ticket. You have to buy the ticket, right? to if you're aspiring to be a whatever office, you have to buy the ticket. You have and the tickets are usually very very expensive, and then you still have to go through the primaries, which just involves bribing delegates. That's literally how it works here. I don't have that money, and then you can bribe and still be outbribed and lose. And then even if I win the primaries, if the party that I'm running under isn't one of the major parties, then I would just be wasting time. I'll be wasting money. I'll be wasting effort. So it's an uphill. It's a very very uphill battle. However, I do have strategy. I've really looked at the political landscape and I've seen an opening that I believe might give me maybe a 20% chance of winning. So, but I'm not going to talk about that here, obviously, because the haters will be listening. So,
Right. No, I totally get that. Well, you said that there are because I guess Nigeria is split pretty evenly between Muslims and Christians, correct?
yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah. So you said yeah, you said that there are a lot of Christians in Nigeria that are appreciative of what Donald Trump is doing. Where does like the Nigerian Christian population fall politically? Are they all socialist, or are there some that are open to other ideas? Like, I just how do Nigerians and Christian or how do like Christians in Nigeria in general vote or think about politics?
Everyone here is a socialist. Christians, Muslims,
Yeah.
everyone here is a socialist. So you only have. I don't think we have up to 0.1% of the country's population that would consider themselves even politically conservative, right wing, maybe a little right of center. I don't think 0.01% of the nation's population will consider themselves um, a little right of center. Pretty much everyone here thinks you need the government to do everything. The government needs to do this, the government needs to do that. So the 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 furthest right you would see, apart from people like myself, and I doubt there are 100 people like myself in this country of over 200 million people, but the farthest right you would
Yeah.
see would be Trump supporters. And even those people don't understand the economic policies of someone like a Donald Trump. So people would support, I've seen people, Nigerians, support Donald Trump. And then when you ask them about economic policy, about what they would do on guns, on various issues, they would give you standard left wing talking points. So there really isn't a political spectrum here. I think I said this at our last interview. There really isn't a political spectrum here. It's all, everything is all, now in economic terms, it's Maynard Keynes and leftward. You don't have anything to the right of Keynes. So the Overton window here is very small, very, very small, and needs to be expanded. It needs to be expanded to accommodate um, more right leaning libertarian ideas.
Well, I think that's where the Nigerian Liberty Project comes in, and I want you to talk about this because this has been kind of your work over the last year or so, and I've donated to it, and we're going to talk about how people can support you and everything. But before we go on, all right, so you're living in a country where everyone is left wing. What is the goal of your Nigerian Liberty Project? Why did you start it, and what are you trying to do with it?
So I started it for the same reason that I am a minister of the gospel. I have never known what is right and kept silent about it. Right from when I was a child, when I was about to go to university, my mother told me, keep your thoughts to yourself. She begged me to keep my thoughts to myself. I'm not the kind of person to know something to be right and not confront it. And it used to get me know something to be wrong and not confront it. It used to get me into a lot of trouble when I was a kid, when I was growing up. But thank God for the wisdom of the scriptures. I've become wiser. I've learned. Age and the wisdom of scriptures have taught me when to speak and when not to speak. The advice of elderly people has also helped calm me down. So if I learn something, I can't keep it to myself. I the only way I would keep something good that I've learned to myself is if the people to whom I bring the information tell me we don't want to hear anymore. Then I'm like, okay, fine, stay in ignorance then. But if people are willing to listen, I'm willing to talk. right? So when I became a Christian, it didn't take me, I kid you not, I wasn't a Christian for 3 days before I started evangelizing. I didn't know anything. All I knew was that Jesus is Lord and everybody must know this, right? So um, that's how I am. So once I learned about libertarianism, um, I thought to myself, I can't keep this to myself. My countrymen need to hear this. People, we need to bring. I need to do something to implement change. So, a mutual friend of ours, Nate, on Twitter, he encouraged me. He gave me support. Um, gave me lots of counsel, told me how to do this. So I had the idea and I shared with him, and he was like, "This is really good." He has been the most helpful. I mean, I've had help from lots of people, yourself included, but he has been the most helpful, single most helpful in person. And I've gotten help from great help from a lot of people. The Bishop of the Mises Institute, yourself, Boards and Reality, lots of people, right? But Nate has been outstanding in his help. So he helped me start. He helped me when I wrote the document, the proposal for what I wanted to do. He helped me vet it and gave me ideas and all that. Wonderful. Shout out to Nate at Nate 7383 on Twitter. Um, I love the man. So he helped
He's
me
a
out,
great
and then
guy.
so yeah, seriously great guy. So I went I went to one of the universities here, and I gathered. So I got one of the student leaders and I spoke to him about what I had come to learn, Hayek, Mises, Rothbard, all that stuff, and he was blown away by everything I said to him. And he called his I told him to tell his friends that there's some guy that's coming with something different, and then he assembled about 50 students at the time, and then I had my first event, and then I spoke to them on mostly monetary matters because we have an inflation in the country. And from then it just sort of became a thing, right? I've been to other states since that time. I've had big events and small events. So I teach them Austro libertarianism. I focus mostly on the Austrian than the libertarianism part. I focus more on the economics and the politics because I have found that with my people, economics is a much better gateway to get them to accept your ideas. If you go, if I tell them, if I start to talk about guns or let me think, what other libertarian issue, borders, all the various legalization of drugs, um, insert whatever libertarian non-economic issue you can think of. If you start talking about those things, they sound very extreme. If I tell a Nigerian that the solution to the drug crisis in Nigeria is to legalize drugs, I'll be chased out of town. I'll be burned at the stake, right? But when I come through Austrian economics, everyone feels the bitter sting of inflation. Everyone wants to know what's responsible for these high prices, why there is unemployment, and I'm coming up with answers they've never heard before, with solutions they've never heard before, solutions that make sense. Speaking of which, I was invited to a radio station this morning, and it was very short notice, and basically they invited me to weigh in on an economic issue here. And while in the studio, while talking to the hosts, so there were two of them, I could literally see the light, not literally, figuratively see the light bulbs come on their heads while I was explaining um, what was going on in Nigeria and the solutions. And they both of them commented that they made comments that I don't speak in technicalities. I don't use any economic jargon, which tells me that when other contributors go to talk, they speak economies, language that the
Right.
layman can't understand. So that's one of the advantages of Austrian economics. You can break it down in very simple terms. It's just logic, right? Um, so the ideas are very compelling. And when people see that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to economics, I can defend myself, I can break down policy properly, then they are more inclined, they start to think, if he's correct about this, what else is he correct about? And they give me listening ears. So then I start to smuggle in the political, the philosophical aspect, and that kind of stuff. So basically, I go around the country, I teach these ideas to young people, I give them free books. People like the Mises Institute, they've been so gracious, they let me print their books and give them out for free. Saifuddin Amus of the Bitcoin Standard recently gave me permission to print his book, The Principles of Economics. If you haven't read that book, Saifuddin Amus's Principles of Economics, it is. I've read many books on the subject, both from the neoclassical perspective, from the classical, from even from in the Austrian tradition. I don't think there is a single individual who has done justice to um, principles like Saifuddin Amos. That book is a gem. It's a masterpiece. So it's very expensive for me to print and distribute for free here, but because of how good the book is, I'm going to do that. It's a 400 or so page book. So I give out these books for free. And basically, I'm just trying to convert people. My goal is to, as I said earlier, to expand the Overton window to accommodate ideas of liberty and hopefully, not just expand it, but then move the needle a little towards liberty. Let's have someone right of center, and see how that works out for us. And then let's push further rightward. And I mean this economically, right? Let's move further rightward and see what happens. So that's basically my goal. I'm in no hurry. I have a 10 or 20-year plan, and it involves politics and training and raising politicians and people in business and academia and all that. So, yeah, that's in a very long summary what I do, how I do it, and what my goals are.
So you were talking about how when you were on the radio program this morning, you'd see the light bulb go off in the host's head. Has that been kind of your general reception when you go out and speak? And then, like, after you talk to people, do they have good follow up questions? Do they continue to contact you afterwards? Like, what's been the reception by the audience of your ideas?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So my audience is mostly students, university students. Catch them while they're young. So Nigerian universities are socialist by default. They don't even know that what they're doing is socialism. They don't know. Like there are institutions that know that they overtly, and by the way, I'm going to one of those institutions later this year, the socialist capital of my country. I'm going there. Those guys know that they're socialists. It's not like people in other parts of the country that are socialists, but they don't know. If you ask them, they'll tell you they're capitalists, or they'll tell you they believe in a mixed economy, um, which is basically just socialism light. But so when I speak to these people, the last major event I did, I've done many small events, but the last major event I did last year, I had, I think, about 300 people in attendance, and all students, and many of them held me back. I was supposed to be there for a day. I ended up spending 4 days on the campus,
Oh
and
no.
many of them held me back with questions. There was this particular guy. This guy, he he's like the Nigerian reincarnation of Karl Marx. He has never read Karl Marx. He doesn't know anything about socialism, but everything he said was socialism. He challenged me on every single thing I said. This young man followed me day and night, asked me question after question after question. And at the end of the day, I he, thank God he didn't wear me down with his questions because I was exhausted. But at the end of the day, I actually convinced him. Right? He was like he has no answers to my questions. So I've never had a face to face conversation with anyone ever and not had the person walk away. I've never had them walk away the same, right? They always agree. They always concede that this thing you're saying is right. You know, the only opposition I get is on social media. It's only on Twitter that I get people being adamant in their socialism, in their Keynesianism. But in real life, when I sit face to face with people, whether it's an audience or talking to people in a radio studio or just one on one, sometimes I literally just speak to people. I'm taking a taxi and I start to talk to the driver or something. I've never had them not agree um, with the things I said. You know, some of them follow up, some of them don't. Right. So that's pretty much how it's been. So I think there is progress. That the only limitation I have, the only limitation I have is funding, and I say this because um, certain things have to be learned by repetition. If I go to a campus and I speak to them for 4 days and I leave, the rest of the academic semester they have their socialist professors talking to them. They have the socialist media and the socialist textbooks, basically socialism everywhere. So the exposure to socialism tends to rewire them, tends to undo what they learned. So I need a way to continue, to persevere, to visit as many times as I can in person. So if I can successfully, I've been writing to a couple of organizations for funding. If I can successfully get through to any one of them and I can get a steady funding source, I believe that in the next 5 years, I would have changed at least 20,000 minds, directly or indirectly. I'm that confident in my ability to convince people. I've been doing this business of convincing people for years with the gospel, with pretty much anything I believe in.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you this too. I mean, given the fact that your country is full of socialists and that like all of the universities are run by socialists, is there any is in like just your stories of like the how chaotic Nigerian politics can be? Is there any danger in you going around and talking to people about Austrian economics?
Yeah, it's very dangerous. First of all, there is the risk of being let me call it the logistical danger, right? Traveling, first of all, is very dangerous here because people get kidnapped, snatched up on the road all the time, and then they ask your family for ransom, and if they can't pay, they'll chop you up into bits and use your parts for ritual and sacrifices and all that nonsense. So a true story happens all the time. Um, so there's there's that risk. There is
Right.
also yeah. So there is also the risk of I was supposed to go to a particular institution. I'm not going to mention which. I've not mentioned any institution. So I was supposed to go back to a particular institution um a couple of I think it was the end of last year or the beginning of this year. Okay, yeah, it was beginning of this year. So the students organized and asked me to return, but the governing body did not let me they didn't let me grant me access to the students. So those types of things um, happen. Which is why the Nigerian Liberty Project exists, so that I can take the students out of the campus, take them to a venue, a hotel, get a venue, and then host my own event. I don't have to go to their campus, right? That's why the Liberty Project exists. So there is also the risk that because I'm calling for the abolition of central banking, I'm calling for the government to have less power, um, and that's potentially dangerous. I think the only reason why I'm free to move about is because I'm not well known in Nigeria. If I'm well known, it will come with more risk. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
More risk on the political establishment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I guess like in the future, if you do plan on running for political office, that probably put a pretty big target on your back too, right?
Oh yeah, but I also have a plan for that.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. Well, man, again, like everything that you've been doing there is incredible. Like I said, I've donated to the Nigerian Liberty Project. What else do you want my audience to know about what you're doing over there and about how like you can make an impact and about how they can help you with this?
Um. So a friend of mine from South Africa um, reached out to me, literally out of nowhere, and he said to me, "So I've never met this person before. We're friends online on Twitter." So he reached out to me and he sent me a DM, and then he said, "Nigeria has to get it right." So, like, I was like, "Huh?" And then now this is so there is beef between Nigeria and the rest of Africa. Nigerians have beef with Ghana, have beef with South Africans. Well, it's just like the way Americans tease Canadians, and Europeans and Americans hate each other. It's that kind of thing. You know, it's a friendly rivalry. Sometimes it gets not so friendly, but generally there is rivalry between the nations. So for a South African to tell me that Nigeria has to get it right, and then he said, if Nigeria, his words, not mine, if Nigeria gets it right, then all of Africa will follow. So they call Nigeria the giant of Africa. And this isn't just because we used to have the largest economy or because we have the largest population or any of, there is just something about, there is just something about, I have my theories as to why Nigerians are the way they are, but Nigerians tend to dominate any and everywhere they go. I have my theories as to why that is. We faced more opposition than most people in all of Africa, and perhaps in most of history, right? And I've noticed people who have gone through adversity tend to be very resilient, right? So so let me just say this: there is a every time Nigerians leave the country, when they go outside, it's very difficult to meet a Nigerian outside who isn't extremely successful. There are obviously exceptions, but all my friends who left Nigeria, all of them, they're at the top of their fields, regardless of what it is they're doing. Right. So I have one of my theories is that there is so much resistance in Nigeria. Nigeria is so freaking difficult, very difficult. So when people go to places where there isn't so much resistance, it's like they've been caged all their lives and then they are free to run. So that's one of my theories as to why Nigerians tend to be very successful. So the Nigerian spirit is very indomitable. We are not easily broken, and we set the tone for Africa in our movies, in our music, everything Nigeria does. Every other country in Africa, most other countries in Africa, at least in the sub-Saharan region, they pick up on these things and start to implement. So I took the thing my South African friend said to heart, and my 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 word to your audience is solving Nigeria's problems is perhaps the key to solving the problems of the black race. Maybe I'm being a bit dramatic or hyperbolic, but I do believe that if Nigeria gets it right, I believe if Nigeria gets it right, Africa will indeed would definitely get it right. And imagine a world where Africa gets it right. I think it would be a shame to the West if Africa gets it right before they can get their house back in order, right? So um, it might seem like it is in fact that I'm just one man among billions of people on the earth, among hundreds of millions of people in Nigeria. I'm just one person. But then again, every great fire was once a little ember, a little spark somewhere that became a massive inferno. So who knows and it's growing, right? The movement is growing. I've had people on Twitter in real life who have come to my side, who have come to see things as I see them. I've taken people from socialism to Rothbardianism. That is one end of the spectrum, literally one end of the spectrum to the other end. I think it's an impressive feat. I've been able, with God's help, I've been able to do that to people. So I believe I might not be the one to bring the change, but I might train someone, I might speak to someone someday who will take that fire and would perhaps go to be a Milton Friedman or a Thomas Sowell or a Murray Rothbard or a Ludwig von Mises in this part of the world. So that is the message I would like to pass on to 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 to, to listeners. If anyone wants to lend support in any way, shape, or form, I would be willing to receive it. Very, very willing to receive any kind of support from anyone.
All right. Well, I guess that's my final question for today. Then, for people that want to support you directly, how can they do it?
So I have a fundraiser. I would send you the link. Oh, I think you already have it.
Yeah, and
I,
I'll
I have
put it
a,
in the show notes too.
I have a fundraiser. I receive cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, um, Core, Cash, Monero, um, and then follow me on Twitter. That's pretty much at Econ Bro, ECONBREAU, at ECONBREAU. Um, that's the only way you can. Let me make one request. Um, if the Mises Institute gave out or is giving out 100,000 copies of what has government done to our money, and I asked them to give me 12,000 copies. They have no problem giving me 12,000 copies to help with my work, but the problem is shipping it down here. That's just, it's very, very expensive to ship it down here. I
Yeah.
wouldn't mind having those 12,000 copies. Imagine what I could do with 12,000 copies of that book. So if anybody wants to take up that cause, I would really appreciate it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
thank you.
I, Yeah, well, man, again, I love what you're doing over there. I think I called you the Ron Paul of Nigeria, and I think that is completely and entirely true. Really inspirational to all of these, like to all of us American libertarians who have much more of a movement over here. So I love what you're doing, and I hope that people support you. So I'm going to encourage everyone in my audience, even if it's only a couple of bucks, go out there, support Econ Bro and the great work that he's doing because it really can change the world. Econ Bro, it's been great talking with you again today, man. Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Hopefully, if I ever return for the fourth time, I would have good news. Very, very good news.
Yeah. Yes, we will definitely make that happen, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the listeners.